The Timeshift.
Hello and welcome to The Timeshift. I'm Chris Hall and today I'm going to be looking at the third episode of Class entitled Night Visit. Now because this video is something of a review, this video is going to be spoiler heavy. So if you don't want this episode spoiled for you for whatever reason, it's best to switch the video off now. Okay, everybody ready? Everybody geared up? Let us dive headfirst into the Night Visit. Ooh. Okay, so I've just literally finished watching The Night Visit, so this video is going to be less of a sit-down review and more of an immediate reaction kind of thing. I'm doing this because, well, I think my opinion of it is pretty much almost as solidly formed as it possibly can be, and because, well, I'm on a bit of a roll. I've only just finished recording the reviews for the first couple episodes of this series of Class, so I might as well keep going whilst the iron is glowing hot. And I have to say that this episode was far and away better than the previous two. Though, with that said, that's not saying that much. To be honest with you, it is better because, well, one of the big problems I had in the previous two episodes of The Timeshift has been the fact of exposition. Characters almost literally stating their characters and their personality and their backstories. In this episode, we don't get that quite as much. I suppose this is mostly because this is the third episode in the series, but one of the things that really helped that was the story itself. This is about an alien species that is using people's memories, people's emotions for its own benefit, so it can feed off people's emotions and all kinds of bullshit things in any case, because in any case, it works in the context of characterization because it means that we're not having characters literally sitting down and tell us their backstories. They're doing that, yes, but they're doing it in a way that feels natural to the scenario in which it's happening. It's kind of like in The Terminator when you have the moment where Kyle Reese is being interviewed in the police station. And it's at that moment you have the psychologist character and he's asking Kyle Reese all the things about what you're from the future and where's your special magic ray gun thing? Shouldn't you have that if you come from the future? And it's at that moment we learn that metal from the future can't go back in time, and yeah, but the Terminator itself is covered by human skin, that's why it was able to, even though it's a machine. We get all the exposition, all the explanation stuff out of the way there and then. And in this one we learn more about the characters themselves, Miss Quill as well as the young nerdy girl who I still don't know her name, but in this week's episode we learned that she has the nickname Puddle, but I'm not going to call her that because it was a silly story, but a nice story, a silly story, but still I don't want to call her that for the rest of the review. With those two characters it was great because we learned a little bit more about them, their personality and their backstory in ways that felt natural to the environment they're in. Though with that said, there was a moment with Preppy Girl and Ram in which she literally sat him down and explained her backstory. Why she is at war! Why she has to be the sensible one, gosh darn it, because her father is a drunk and a nasty man and oh, isn't my backstory tragic? I mean, it felt very odd that happening given the events that were going on around them. I mean, it felt to a certain degree, not so much because it is a literal moment of someone sitting down and explaining their backstory, but the pace of that felt a little bit different. Everything else was a little bit more focused, a little more on to the point, a little bit more dangerous. But it was just her and Ram walking through this weird, almost invasion of the body snatchers environment, then sitting down and explaining, oh yeah, my father was a famous violinist, but he started to drink. And he was a nasty man, and he tried to kill us in the car. He said it was a suicide attempt, but oh, God blimey, now my mother's in a wheelchair. To be honest, like I said, I did enjoy it immensely, given the stuff that happened within it. This was a moment for Nerdy Girl's character to really shine. I still don't know her name, again, but how she defeated the big alien bad guy was actually pretty clever. It was set up rather interestingly, that when you had the moment where the old man and his mother, they met each other, then fake father guy started to have a weird reaction to it. That was a great way in setting it up. I didn't really notice that. I think this was you may not have noticed it, but your brain did kind of thing. But still, still the way that she defeated the bad guy was by turning her own anger at her father's death into a weapon. So then use on the bad guy was great, and the fact that at the end of the episode, yeah, everyone who was wrapped up by the alien vine thing seemingly forgot what happened, but if we're going to have characters forget, if you're going to have extras and the rest of the world not be affected by the events that are going to happen within the show itself, at least explain it away. which is what they did. They explained it as maybe it's a way for the lanky or whatever it's called to be able to come back to planets later on, so people aren't more aware of what's going on, you know. A second chance for it to feed, just in case the first time doesn't work out, which I thought was a great way of explaining away this big alien invasion thing, which was cool. I mean, it is surprising how we went from the first couple episodes where it was pretty much wafted off as, oh yeah, Coal Hill, it's a place where the body count is abnormally high. Oh wow, everyone's forgotten that there's aliens and the place is nearly invaded by evil monsters that look like they're from the Elder Scrolls game. But you know what? That's perfectly fine because, you know, they're not what's important. But it was great to actually have an explanation for that. I don't think we're going to be so lucky as having explanations like that for next week's episode, but we'll soon see. There were some bits within the episode itself which I didn't like that much. The editing in some moments felt a little bit weird. When we did have the moment where Nerdy Girl's father was freaking out a little bit after the old man, the angry old man was eaten, and the way it kept cutting to him and his mouth and his eyes and stuff, I think that took a little bit out of the moment itself. As well as the opening montage bit, I thought was a little bit too twee, for want of a better word. You knew by what happened in the previous week's episode and the story that she told that her father was going to die. You knew that was going to be the case. So the fact that it was pretty much like waiting for the Titanic to sink without it actually being as interesting as that. And it pretty much signposted what the rest of the episode was going to be if you hadn't already saw the previews from the end of last week's episode. Though still, with all that said and done, it's still a fairly decent episode. Even if there's still bits within it which, again, didn't quite work for me. Exposition, again, I hate it. I hate moments where characters sitting down and literally telling us what they're feeling and what their backstory is, but thankfully it was only really one moment. With every other character moment, when you had alien prince guy and his boyfriend and the interaction between them, it felt more genuine, more like an actual conversation that those two characters would have if they were real, if they really were a couple. Even if one of them was an alien, you know, it felt a little bit more real, a little bit oddly more human in a way. And it was more interesting in some regards. It felt more like a science fiction story than necessarily a science fantasy one. I don't like the bit towards the end of the episode where Miss Quill gets the double-decker bus and drives the vine away, just runs it over. I thought that was a little bit too silly. And after a great little moment where Nerdy Girl defeats the evil bad guy by using her wits and her cunning, then suddenly, beep, beep, oh, where did she get a bus from? Oh, that's so like her, the wacky Miss Quill. Catherine Kelly's performance within this show feels a little bit weird. And with that said, let us now dive headfirst to briefly talk about performances. Woo! Yay, to talk about performances. It's a section when I come to the time shift where very little is often said, because when I'm talking about Doctor Who, all ends up being said is Peter Capaldi is fine, and then Clara is fine, and then I end up chastising some background character for being camp or wooden or shite. As the characters themselves and the performance-wise things, it was a moment where the extra characters, or what should the more ensemble cast members, the Nerdy Girl and Miss Quill and whatnot, were given a moment to shine. The girl that plays the Nerdy Girl, I thought it was a great moment for her, and to a certain degree I would have preferred it if it was just the entire episode was just her and her father, just her having this interaction with this creature. Is it really her father? Has her father somehow found a way in coming back from the dead? Or is he part of some kind of alien species? Or is he just purely alien? This is some kind of deception. I thought that in itself would be an interesting thing, rather than us hopping around to the different characters just to acknowledge their existence. This was very much an episode for her. Next week is very much going to be an episode for the Nerdy Girl, which does disappoint me to a degree. Rather than this being an ensemble cast kind of show, it seems to be that every episode from now until the end of the series is going to be about one specific character, which is disappointing. I don't like the idea of that, because it means that all the other characters have pretty much got to sit in limbo and twiddle their thumbs while someone else has a moment to shine, where this is this actor's moment to shine and to really prove their worth within the show itself and their history and their future as performers. Oh, it's so sad her father died, and her father nearly killed her, and oh, his girlfriend's dead and he's lost a leg. Oh, how sad. It means that other characters have pretty much got nothing to do and they kind of feel superfluous. If we are going to have episodes where it's just about a particular character, do we really need the other characters in the background making bad jokes and gurning? I don't think so. If we are going to take a moment to actually talk about performances, and I think it's only fair that we talk about a performance that I didn't quite like, to be frank and honest, which was Catherine Kelly. I don't know why, but there's something off about Catherine Kelly within this show, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I like her. In stuff that I've seen her in, she's been good, she's been fine, but for whatever reason, in almost every scene that I've seen her in within Class up till now, she feels a little bit odd. And I don't know why. Maybe because she's miscast, or the character itself is too two-dimensional, or she just feels like a weird inclusion to what's going on, but I just can't put into words why she feels so strange. I think one of the contributing factors, I suppose, is the fact that this is supposed to be a show about young adults. This is supposed to be about teenagers around the age of 18, with the exception of the nerdy girl who's supposed to be about 16, I think it is. But even with that said, there's no excuse for her to really feel so odd. Well, I suppose there is because she's an alien, but I don't know. I can't put my finger on it thus far. So I don't know whether it's just the fact of her being bad or bad writing or whatever, but hey ho, I can't go too far into this, otherwise I'd just be repeating myself, so let us just go straight forward to the overview. So the overview, what I thought of the episode as a whole, I thought it was alright, to be honest with you. I did enjoy it far and away more than the other episodes that we've had thus far. And aside from one real clunky moment, pretty much everything else ran significantly smoother than what we had thus far. This feels a little bit more like what we were promised initially, or at least what I interpreted what the show would be. Of course, granted, it's still going to be a Monster of the Week kind of thing, with the exception of the next couple episodes, which I think are a two-parter kind of thing. And of course, next week we see the return of the King of the Shadow King. And preppy violin-playing girl is going to have her moment to shine. Her evil father is going to come back, and she's going to gain the Shadow Man powers and start doing smashy things and swinging very bad-looking prop swords and all manner of things. Oh dear me, I have a bad feeling next week's episode isn't going to be as good as this week's. I did enjoy the episode, even if there are moments within it which didn't quite work, but they're only minor things given the overall quality of this show itself. Again, I didn't like the opening montage because it did feel a little bit more like, be sad now! Look at all the happy bits, now there's a sad bit, this is juxtaposition, bitch! This show contains disturbing images and things that may make people upset, and you better be upset because this is class. This isn't your daddy's Doctor Who. This is emotional. It's for young adults. It's sexier and scarier and spookier and bloodier and more gritty and grounded in reality. Look, we've got a gay alien. I bet Torchwood does. Oh yes, we're at the cutting edge of entertainment here on BBC Three. That's why we've been relegated to an internet TV station rather than being on TV full time. We're here whenever you want us. Like, ooh, it's class. It has its own identity now. We have characters who are going to literally sit down and spend 5 minutes of an alien invasion talking about their backstory because you're an idiot and you lack the capability of being able to discern character motivations and personalities by the slightest moment and them being literally said in the previous week's episode. That doesn't matter because you're an idiot. I know that felt like a bit of a rant and I don't really know where that came from. Just suddenly there's moments where I have rants like that. It's like a red mist descends and I don't know what's going on, but still, and kind of within that, I don't even know where to begin dissecting what I just said, but you know, again, the episode itself was fine. I worry for next week's episode because it looks like it's just going to be more or less Doctor Who but slightly sex stuff, which I really don't want. If I wanted Doctor Who sexed up, then I'd go and watch Torchwood. If I wanted Doctor Who more kiddified, I'd go and watch Sarah Jane Adventures. This show, whilst this episode did define the show's overall signature and style a little bit more, it still finds itself in this awkward position where it's kind of a servant of two governors. It's somewhere between the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood. It's neither quite one of them, but there are moments where it feels like it could be either of them. Next week's it looks like it could be just another subpar episode of Doctor Who, but slightly sexed up, which I hope it isn't. But of course, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But what did you think about this week's episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Mention me in the little message box below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, either at the end of next week's episode or directly. You know, I probably would have been at this time that I'd look at previous comments from the last episode of the Timeshift about class, but seeing as I recorded them back to back, I can't. So, you'll never know. Next week it may be a bumper crop of comments. Chances are it isn't. But in any case, bye bye.